The other side of environmental conservation is usually the business sector. Do you think that there'll ever be a balance between resources management and the needs of the business sector? For certainly we need both of them.
Oh, absolutely, and I definitely think they can be. And I am a very strong advocate of saying that business and environment can also go together. Okay? But it will demand us as civil society to actually push the envelope. We must ask for more, because if we don't set tougher goalposts for business, business will not do what is also possible, or what is desirable. For instance, if you take something like the mining sector, which is one of our biggest areas, I believe very strongly that you will need mining, you need business, but I also argue that business is extracting resources but not returning anything to the place from where it is taking its raw material. It is displacing communities, it is dispossessing people, and it is destroying the environment. Now, what is the cost if business was to invest into that environment? How much would it cost the business? And you will find it's not a lot. It's not so much that it's unbearable. It's about shifting the emphasis and saying this cost has to be paid for, because if you don't, then you will degrade the environment and you will marginalize the poor, and that is not good for business. And I think there is a way of thinking about it, whether it's pollution. We fight with industry, but we also engage with industry, because I believe that industry can find answers and has to find answers.
Your relations are good with the industry?
It's what I call a relationship of mutual disrespect and respect. I think Indian industry, as in most other industry in India, and I can only speak about India because I know it best, India is a democracy. And one of the things that has to be recognized is that each one of us has legitimate spaces for work. As much as industry is needed in India for growth, for prosperity, people like us are needed to be able to put forward a point of view so that that growth and prosperity can indeed be sustainable and can indeed be equitous. So I believe that our role in democracy is important, and I think Indian industry recognizes it. We've had a number of campaigns. We have campaigns against air pollution. We have a campaign against polluted water. We have a campaign against the overuse of pesticides and toxins. But these are campaigns where we are directly challenging industry, but we also find that there are many industrial leaders who will stand apart and say, this campaign actually helps me to be a leader in my field, because I can do something which is good for the country and good for the environment.
And are you finding that's working? Is industry coming around to that kind of thinking?
In a scale of India, you can never, there is no absolute, everything is relative. But I think there is a willingness to engage. I give you another instance. One of our we rate Indian industry in terms of its environmental impact. And one of the ratings we did, a public rating we did, was of the pulp and paper sector. Now, the Indian pulp and paper sector has been saying to government that, the Southeast Asian model has been that you give large amount of forest areas to industry as concessions, and that these are cheap lands that industry then has access to for its development. Now, we have been arguing that India cannot afford the Southeast Asian model, that India must get its raw material from farmers and from tribals. So the same raw material for the pulp and paper sector must come out of employment which is created through its farming sectors. So we are looking at an industrial model in which you can have a pulp and paper sector, but your raw material comes out of a mass of producers who grow your raw material, not a large captive plantation. Now, this has been a very difficult issue, because obviously industry says to us, but in Malaysia the land is cheap and their raw material is cheap. We are imposing costs on it. But what has been very encouraging is that in the last 10 years, Indian paper industry has innovated. And so there are many industries today who are actually sourcing 100% of their raw material from farmers. And here is a change that is happening, and I think that's very fascinating, that we can actually find new models of growth. I mean, this is growth, but it's a growth which is deeper, which benefits a larger number of people, and can actually provide employment for millions.
It's quite encouraging, isn't it? You're known more as Miss Water Management. You've won awards for it, water harvesting. Tell us more about your ideas in water management, which is a major problem everywhere, and how you link it with improved human rights, quote unquote.
Well, I think firstly, to start with, water is a fundamental human right. We have to understand it. I mean, we need water for our development. Without water, there is no agriculture, so there are no livelihoods. Without water, there is no nutrition. Without water, there is no health, because it's bad for your health. So it's a very clear human need. Now, in a country like India, what we have argued is that the way that we have managed our water has been that we have essentially created large systems, more centralized systems, but those have benefited few people. What we need is a system in which we can distribute water, because we want to distribute wealth and we want to have more inclusive growth. And for that, we have really borrowed on India's traditions. I mean, India has had a remarkable, incredible tradition of managing its water. Pre the colonial time, before the British came in, every region of India had its own unique system of managing water. It used to harvest rain. So in the desert, for instance, if you go to the Rajasthan desert, you will find these amazing systems even today, where every house will on its roof harvest the water and store it in the tank, or that they will use small catchments and build wells and use that catchment to harvest the water. Or that they will do in the Himalayas, they will melt the glacier and then they will harvest it. So every region had unique systems, and what we are really arguing is that we need to learn from the wisdom of our people. We need to recreate this wisdom in modern water policy, and that the only way we can do that is if we look at water as a community right, because we have to decentralize the governance of water as well. So in a sense, what we have argued is water is not about water, but really water is about politics, and that this is really what India has to do.
Interesting. What about making water management a business? Because I understand in some countries like Singapore, where they also have a water problem, this has become a very lucrative business.
Well, you know, I have nothing against it, and I think water as a business is going to be very much part of all our realities, but we have, in fact, is part of our reality. I'm sure while you're in India, you've been drinking bottled water. Bottled water is a business, and it's a very big business in India, where the rich pay today more for a bottle of water than they pay for a liter of milk. So, you know, it's already a business. But I would argue a little differently, that in India, the issue is not about business, the issue is about access to all. Now, when you're looking at access to all, you will find that it's impossible for you to think about business providing water where there is no economic opportunity for it to do so. So what I would argue is that first you must treat water as a public good, and then you must treat water as an economic good. So you need both. You need it as a public good, a right of every Indian to have water, different forms of management so that you can make water a public good. But then where the rich in India, where the business in India exists, you need water to be priced. Because if you don't price water, then at the end of the day, water becomes something in which the rich use water, but they don't pay for it. And it's the poor who pay for it. So I think business has a very important role to play, but it has a role to play where there is a business of water, not where the business of water is about providing water to all.
That makes sense.